Procrastination can be hard, and it's something that we have all suffered from. Whether you're putting off studying for an exam, or you're putting off starting on a big project, or you're just putting off regular household chores, procrastination can have a devastating effect in our lives. The first effect is stress, because when we procrastinate on a bunch of things, they eventually all start to pile up, and it becomes very stressful to deal with all of them at the same time. Likewise, a second effect is missed deadlines, because when things pile up so much, we can tend to miss deadlines because we have just so much to do all at once that we can't get it all done. And likewise, because we are trying to do so many things all at once, trying to get them all done before the deadline, when we procrastinate on so many things and we end up doing all of them at the same time right before the deadline, we don't have enough time to really think about what we're doing, really review our work, and as a result of that, our work quality suffers. And when all those things happen, we can start to feel a sense of shame and a sense of guilt because we were unable to do the things that we said we were going to do ahead of time, and then when we actually ended up doing them, it was too late, the work quality suffered, and we may have even missed some deadlines along the way. And finally, when we look back, we realize how much time we lost just by procrastinating and doing nothing for so long. Now, to stop procrastinating, we must first understand why we procrastinate in the first place, and it's not as simple as saying, well, I'm just lazy. There's a host of reasons why we can procrastinate. For example, we can be seeking instant gratification and putting short-term pleasure over long-term pleasure, or conversely, putting short-term pain over long-term pain. In other words, when we procrastinate, we're thinking about the here and now. We're thinking about the pain that we are going to endure right now by doing the thing now, as opposed to the pain that we are going to feel later by procrastinating on it now. Or conversely, we think more about the pleasure that we feel right now by doing something else that maybe is more entertaining or more enjoyable, as opposed to the long-term pleasure that we are going to get later on from finishing something ahead of time and even creating a better quality of work. A second reason we can procrastinate is due to a fear of failure. In other words, we use procrastination as a coping mechanism to not deal with our fear of failure, but in reality, the procrastination doesn't actually work because we're going to do it eventually, or if we don't do it eventually, then we feel let down by ourselves at the fact that we didn't do it at all. Now, what's interesting is that we used to think that there were only two kinds of trauma responses: fight or flight. But in reality, there are actually four types of responses. There's fight, there's flight, there's freeze, and there's fawn. Freeze is the kind of response that we give when we engage in procrastination. All that to say that procrastination can be a coping mechanism for our own fears and our own insecurities. Likewise, a third reason that we can procrastinate is very similar to a fear of failure, which is perfectionism. We fear that we will never get the thing perfect, so we just simply don't start at all. However, like I said before, that doesn't solve anything because you're either going to do it eventually really late in the game, right up against the deadline, and then as a result of that, your quality of work is going to be lower, or you're just not going to do it at all, and then you're going to feel let down by yourself at the fact that you didn't do something. Now, if the concept of perfectionism hits home for you, I recently made a video on this exact topic that you can click on somewhere around here at the top. And finally, a fourth reason that we can procrastinate is due to poor planning and overwhelm. When we fail to plan properly, when we fail to set goals and we set to break down those goals into smaller tasks, and we fail to prioritize what needs to be done in the order that needs to get done, when we fail to do all of that and we fail to give ourselves a roadmap of where to go, it can be very overwhelming to start a project because we simply don't know where it is we're going because we haven't planned it out yet. Now, I have a really good way to battle that, which makes into a really great segue into the action steps for how to start beating procrastination. Number one is to break down tasks. Now, I just mentioned this, but when you just have big long-term goals and you haven't broken them down into specific tasks for how you're going to get to that goal, it can be very overwhelming to start the process of reaching that goal because you don't know what step number one is, you don't know what step number 2 through 20 are, you just know what the end goal is, and just looking at that end goal, something that is so far away, can be incredibly overwhelming. But when we break down tasks and we can look at step 1, which is right in front of us, all of a sudden the level of overwhelm significantly goes down and we are much more likely to take action. Another important way to beat procrastination is to be specific with our tasks. So we've already taken our big goals and broken them down into smaller tasks. But if our tasks are not specific specific, if our tasks are vague, we will still feel the same kind of overwhelm. When we have large, big goals that are not broken down into specific steps, we feel overwhelmed. When those specific steps, even if the big goal is broken down into the specific steps, if the steps are vague and they're not clear, it is still going to create overwhelm. So for example, if you want to write a book and you break it down into 10 steps, write chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and so on, but you don't explain what each chapter is going to be or what even the subparts of those chapters are going to be, then you sit there at your desk and you're trying to write chapter 1 and you don't know what you're doing, and it becomes overwhelming, and then you start to procrastinate on it forever. However, if chapter 1 was something specific, like let's say you're writing a book in the fitness niche and chapter 1 is about nutrition, and then you also have it broken down into the subchapters within that chapter about vegetables, protein, etc., whatever it is that you want to write about, then it becomes a lot easier because you have a small, clear step that you can take, and that makes it much less likely that you are going to procrastinate on it. A third way is to set deadlines. If you have a deadline, you are much less likely to procrastinate. Oftentimes, the reason why we procrastinate on so many things is because there is no deadline. For example, there is no deadline for writing that book that you want to write. It's simply a book that you want to write, and if you don't write it, nothing terrible is going to happen. But if you have a deadline, and specifically even more so, if you share that deadline with somebody else, then that deadline holds you accountable, and you have a line drawn in the sand by which you are to complete that task. That line and that accountability makes it much less likely for you to procrastinate. A fourth and very important way to stop procrastinating is to leave your phone away from your desk. Your phone is simply too distracting. All these social media companies are spending billions of dollars in research and development to try to figure out how to make these devices, these apps, as addictive as humanly possible. When you leave your phone away from your desk, you are much less likely to pick it up because you have to get up out of your chair to go pick up the phone. And if on top of that your phone is in silent mode, then you won't hear the chime ring and you won't be prompted to get out of your chair to go check out what that notification is. But at the end of the day, having your phone on your desk is an incredible distraction, because anytime you feel any sort of overwhelm or any sort of stress, first thing that you are going to do, and I know this from personal experience, is to just do this, because you want to run away from the stress, you want to run away from the overwhelm, you want to run away from your responsibilities, and you want to procrastinate by going on here. So if we just leave it away from our desk, it makes it less likely for us to use it at all. A fifth way to stop procrastinating is to simply just start doing the thing. Even if it means just sitting there in front of your computer for 30, 45, 60 minutes, just staring at a blank screen, trying to work so hard, but you just can't because you're just sitting there and you can't get the creative juices flowing. After enough time, I have found that you just get simply frustrated by staring at that blank screen, and you just start writing something, you just start doing something. And once you start doing something, now the momentum starts to shift, and now the snowball starts to go down the hill, and now you have something to work with and something to build momentum off of. But it never would have occurred if you had never just started and sat there, even if it meant staring at a blank screen. Another version of this, if it's a different kind of task that doesn't require so many creative juices, is to simply just start for 5 minutes. Just do the thing for 5 minutes, and oftentimes you'll find that after 5, maybe 10, maybe 15 minutes, you're not going to want to stop because you're already doing the thing and you want to keep going. So as silly as it sounds, just starting can actually be a great way to deal with procrastination. Number 6, connect with your why. I talked earlier about a few of the reasons that we procrastinate and how one of them was the desire for instant gratification and putting short-term pleasure over long-term pleasure. But when we connect with our why, we connect with our long-term pleasure. We connect with the long-term pleasure of seeing the thing that we wanted to create come to life. And likewise, we also connect with the long-term pain of not seeing that thing come to life because we procrastinated on it forever. And so connecting to your why, whether it's achieving a goal that you have, or dominating your space, or helping other people and being of service to other people, when you connect with that why, it helps you overcome that initial burst of procrastination. It helps you get going because you know you want to do those things, you want to serve those people, or whatever it is that is your why. And when you connect with that, you weaken the force of procrastination. A really good way to connect with your why is to literally ask why over and over and over again. So if I was procrastinating on making this video, I would ask myself, why do I want to make this video? And it might say, well, because I have to, because I'm on a schedule. And I say, okay, well, why are you on a schedule? Why are you producing videos over and over and over again? And then I would say, well, because I want to reach a bunch of people and the YouTube algorithm rewards consistency. And then I would ask, well, why do you want to reach a bunch of people? And then I would say, well, because I want to help a bunch of people. And then I would say, well, why do you want to help a bunch of people? And then I would say, well, because helping a bunch of people fulfills my need for service. Now I've connected to my why. Now filming this video is not simply a task. It's something that allows me to fulfill my need for service. And it's something that makes me happy, makes me joyful, etc. But asking why over and over and over again helps you peel back the layers to figure out what it is that you really want in life. And when you connect with that, procrastination really loses its power over you. A seventh way to deal with procrastination is to remember how good you felt the last time you got something done ahead of time. This goes back to what I was talking earlier about long-term pleasure and short-term pleasure, long-term pain and short-term pain. This is more so focusing on the long-term pleasure that you get from completing something ahead of time. I'm sure that at some point in your life, you have completed something ahead of time. And I'm sure if you think about it, you probably did really well on that thing. The quality of your work was really good and you felt really good about yourself because you exercised so much discipline to get that thing done ahead of time. And so remembering that feeling that you got can be a huge motivating factor to overpower the procrastination force. An eighth and very creative way of dealing with procrastination is to imagine procrastination as a thief. Imagine it as an actual person, an actual burglar that is breaking into your home and stealing your time, because that is what procrastination really is. It is a thief of time. And if you can paint procrastination as an actual human, it can trigger something in you that says, no, I don't want you stealing my time. I'm not going to allow you to steal my time. And now procrastination starts to lose its force over you. And finally, number 9, practice self-compassion. If you find yourself procrastinating, don't beat yourself up over it. Try one of these 8 action steps that I've laid out. Try more action steps that you might find on Google. Try whatever works for you. And if you fail, it is okay. It is okay to fall as long as you get up, and you try again as long as you get up and you keep going. The only way that you lose is if you lie down on the train tracks and allow yourself to get run over. But if you keep moving and you keep trying to get better, you can't lose. And so when you fail and when you procrastinate, instead of allowing that shame and guilt to get to you, either A, use that shame and guilt to make you stop procrastinating, or B, if that's not working, because it often doesn't, oftentimes the shame and the guilt will make us procrastinate even more because it affects our self-esteem, and as a result of that, we procrastinate more. If you can't use the shame and the guilt to overpower procrastination, stop and replace the shame and the guilt with compassion. Take a break, relax. It's going to be okay. How much you procrastinate right now is not the same as how much you're going to procrastinate in 5 years if you keep at it. It is always a work in progress, and remembering that and being compassionate with yourself and being kind to yourself is incredibly important, not just in the sense of your own happiness, but also in the sense of your productivity and your ability to get things done. Because if you just beat yourself up over and over again, it's not productive to your productivity, no pun intended. It's sometimes not productive to getting things done. It just ends up, oftentimes all that does is just beat you down and render you useless. And so if you fall, it's okay to be compassionate with yourself, and it's okay to be kind to yourself, and it's okay to remember and understand that you are a work in progress, and just focus today on being better than you were yesterday. Now, if you like this video, you will probably like this video that I made right here about how to get more done in less time by using the 80-20 rule. So you can click that right here if you want to check that out. And as always, if you like this kind of content, you can click the link in the description below to subscribe to my weekly email newsletter, where I send you content like this every week, every Monday via email to get you started for the week. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video.